You're watching a Roll for Crit review. Today, we're talking about a spin off of one of our favorite games, Terraforming Mars, a big game all about doing just that, making Mars habitable while also trying to make your own corporation profitable. Now, there is a smaller card game version of that same concept that we're reviewing here called Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition.
Yes, and before we begin, this was on Kickstarter. However, the version we have here was actually from Target. It's currently a Target exclusive as of this recording, but may become just mass produced in other places later on. Now, the point of this game is to terraform Mars. You want to get the temperature and oxygen, as well as oceans on Mars, so people can actually live there and have fun. The way the rounds play is actually going to really depend on the planning phase. For you see, there are 5 phases, but they won't always happen. Each round starts with the planning phase, where players are going to select one of their phase cards here. You can see back for the player color. And when they decide, each player will secretly put them out. Once ready, they will all reveal. Now, depending on what cards are flipped, those will actually be the phases you go through. And if there are doubles, well, that means that you're still going to just go through those. So in this case, 1, 2, and 3 are the ones activated. You will then go through the activated phase. And during that phase, if you're the one who played the card, for example, if you played this green card, you get the bonus on the bottom. However, everyone else gets to do that phase on the top. So sometimes you're going to want to make sure you plan around to see what other people want, because that way you can get more actual phases going. The first 2 phases are about playing certain cards. The third phase being about actions, whether it be ones from cards or your basic actions. Phase 4 is about producing more resources to play said cards, and phase 5 is drawing cards from the deck in order to get more cards to play. When it comes to future rounds, you actually don't get the card back you played last round. So if this player wants another development phase, they're either going to have to play another card to get this card back in order to play it in a future round, or hope one of the other players plays a development phase.
There are 3 primary types of cards that come in 3 different colors that you'll be receiving and playing as the game goes on. First, you've got these green cards down here, which are mainly focused on the production aspect of the game. You'll be playing these to increase on your personal player board your output of various resources whenever the production phase comes up. So your credits, your money, or it could possibly be heat or plants, which you'll be able to use to terraform the planet later on. They may also have other effects. Any card could have a number of different things on it, including these symbols over here. Some of these symbols may have different impacts depending on your corporation, for instance, or maybe some ability has made certain symbols cheaper for you. There's all kinds of things, so that's something that you will need to keep an eye out on. Then you have the blue cards, which are usually going to give you your actions that you can do during that action phase. So those are going to be unique special things that only you can do once in each action phase. And your red cards, which are one-time use, big effects that could be any number of things from drawing cards to increasing oxygen temperature level, or again, flipping those ocean tiles in the middle there. If you flip one of those ocean tiles, you'll see they have a little resource bonus on it that you will receive. Could be something on your player board, could be a new card you get to draw. And that's going to help you out, of course, in playing cards or just generally improving the planet and helping yourself get that victory. You also do have a corporation, as I mentioned. Each player is going to have one that gives them some kind of unique advantage or edge, and also tell you how much money you get to start the game with. So you keep playing and playing out cards, building up your engine, trying to produce more and play more until all of those ocean tiles have been flipped and the oxygen and temperature gauges are maxed out. That's when the game ends, and you count up your points, which could come from symbols on your cards, as well as some of these tree tokens if you manage to get enough resources to improve the planet with the oxygen level that way. And also, of course, your TR rating, which is this track, which acts as something that generates money for you during the production phase, and it's also part of your victory points. So this is in a little bit of a way your victory point track as the game goes on will kind of give you a sense of where each player is during the game.
That is the gameplay cycle for Ares Expedition. And we'll say right now that in terms of differences between the Kickstarter and this, it's really some component issues, which we will definitely get back on in this review, as well as some promos. So there really isn't too much, I think, gameplay exclusives. Those promos should be able to be purchased later on, I think, at conventions and stuff, they said. So really, you are seeing mostly what the Kickstarter one has to offer as well.
Yeah, and then we can also talk about, I mean, I think a place to start is the differences between this and the original Terraforming
Hmm.
Mars, of course, which that's a board game, but it also features a ton of card play. So I think if you're familiar with Terraforming Mars,
Oh
the
yeah.
general gameplay and like how these cards work and the types of things you're going to be dealing with there are going to be very, very familiar to you.
Absolutely. I mean, heat still affects temperature. The titanium is still like, oh, that helps with this resource. And also, like, oh, the Saturn symbols, those are rare, but can be really powerful when they work together. They really still have the same meaning. I
Mhm.
think definitely this game was designed to be much more streamlined, which we can question that. But like, they removed the territory control and stuff. This really is like you're building your engine, and the player interaction comes from these phases, which is very interesting because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of playing not just what you want, but thinking, okay, I really would like that development phase. But right now, is there a way I can maybe get, maybe I think Jonathan's going to play it. And if he is, I don't need to play it. Maybe I can get a production phase in, which gives me more resources.
Mhm.
So there's a lot more of trying to look at how other people are what state they're in and what you think they're going to play.
Yeah, or the opposite, where it's like, well, I actually think everyone's going to do production this round, but I get more money if I play that card. So even though I don't need to play it,
Mhm.
I really want that
Oh
extra
yeah,
money, so
those
I gotta play it.
bonuses. Sometimes you need to, like someone give a discount. Like I want that phase, but I have to have the discount. So maybe it's worth it if two people play it,
Mhm.
and maybe that's a way also to stranglehold your opponents. Maybe they're hoping you do something different.
Yeah, so for me, like I said, the core card play, there like I don't have much new to say about it because I still like it. I think it's pretty consistent, like I said, with the original game. The phases are definitely the big thing that make this different from that game. You're not just going through every phase. That's all going to be determined by the players. And also the fact that if this wasn't clear before, all play is simultaneous. So you're not taking turns. Once a phase is flipped open, everybody's just like, okay, I'm playing this card, I'm playing that card. You're not talking to each other at all. You don't need to announce those things. It's up to your group how vocal you want to be about it.
And the rules are designed says that you do get a bonus whenever you raise the temperature or flip an ocean. And let's say I hit the top of this first. For the rest of that phase, people still get the reward as if they did it. So it is designed so you don't have to be too worried, at least within a phase of who and when does someone do something.
Yeah, yeah, but so there can be some. We ran into some little weird things like that I found, but like you said, usually the book tells you, okay, it's friendly, you just figure it out. But the simultaneous play is definitely interesting. I clearly the idea behind it was that it would streamline and speed up the gameplay overall. Terraforming Mars, a pretty long game. Ares Expedition, definitely shorter. And so I think it, in part at least, succeeds at that goal. I found that, well, for one thing, I found the game wasn't short enough, in my opinion. I think it's still a fairly long game. Depends on your group, of course, and how familiar you are with it. But the other thing I found kind of weird about the simultaneous play was, like I said, I feel like it never felt quite natural as a group for us. Should I be telling people what I'm doing? How important is it that I'm saying this right now? But I don't want to slow the game down, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing. There's definitely, like you said, almost no real player interaction in this compared to the original. You really are doing your own thing. The only thing is like, oh, I needed the temperature increased and they raised it, or I didn't want them to.
I would argue in the old one a lot more the player interaction, and that tended to be more like take that, like I'm going to take this area from you. Or there are cards like Predator, which is I'm going to eat your stuff. In this, there's sort of the planning phase. That's your player interaction phase when you try to
Mhm.
deal with it. Then there's the you phase when you just do your stuff.
Yeah.
It's very like back and forth, and even the planning phase, like you're interacting, you can sort of outmaneuver your opponents or something, but it's not. I would not call it like you're not setting them back. Where
Sure.
as much.
And I would also say another thing in the original I would say is there was kind of a race element where there were like the rewards slash achievements you could get,
Yes, yes.
as well as just terraforming the planet of like, oh, I want to build here before someone else does.
Yeah, like
Which
both
was the
of
more
them,
interesting one to me.
both of them have the terraforming part, but the pressure from that I felt was not nearly as much as in the original. The awards I think was the best example of being like this award is going to go off in 2 turns.
Yeah. And then I also experienced something that I know people have complained about a lot for the original Terraforming Mars, and I think it's still an issue in both games, is you are just drawing these cards randomly from a deck, and there's a lot, and they're all unique. And it's very possible that you just never draw the best cards and someone else does, or you just can't get like the early cheap cards you need to build up an engine and somebody else does. And that can really slow you down in the game, and it definitely doesn't feel fair. Now there are ways to
there's a lot of draw, yeah,
but you might not get those cards. It's possible.
It's not even the cards. You have the phase to draw, and
yeah.
It's just interesting. Like I never had an issue with. Like maybe I'd have one round when I'm low on draw, but then playing one phase 5, I'm good to go. I don't know.
I think you got lucky with the cards you drew. I really think that's what it is, and I got unlucky. I just think there's so much variability in what you can get. Like there was one game where I just didn't draw any of these green cards, so my production never increased. Just because I just got bad luck. And there's a lot of green cards in there, but it just so happened that I wasn't able to make it work for me. And so that's something that can happen in this game. And I just think it's, I think people are aware of that with Terraforming Mars. For whatever reason, I think it's a totally valid complaint about the original 2. For some reason, it never really hit me in that game. Maybe because, like you said, there's other things going on. And in this version, I feel like this is all you have is what you're looking at. So it just seemed to hit me harder in this one. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair. It's just that never, like I said, just like in the original one, or maybe like at worst, I felt like because the other stuff masked it, because I would be doing bad there, which felt worse. So if I did do bad in the cards, I didn't notice it. I never had as bad of an issue. I could usually pivot pretty well.
Honestly,
with the things I got.
Playing this game made me think I need to go back and play the original Terraforming Mars and question how much I actually liked that game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not
which I guess is getting to, if you didn't pick up on it already. I found this definitely a step down from the original Terraforming Mars, in my opinion. We had someone in our group, I don't know what you'll say, but one person in our group when we played said, "Oh, I like this way better than Terraforming Mars." So,
I remember someone saying like it. I remember saying better.
Oh yeah, no, he said he liked it way more. So some people, I'm not making it up. This happened.
I don't think you're looking.
So like your mileage will definitely vary on this one, but I guess this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves for the wrap up, but I found that this game was not significantly shorter, nor was it different enough in any other aspect, in my opinion, to really make itself stand out from the base board game. I can't really think of a reason other than if you want something cheaper and you just, I don't know, you don't have as much space on your shelf. Like, I don't know that I would ever recommend this over the original, to be honest. But that's me.
I find that hard.
And I also wouldn't recommend, like, if you owned this game, I also don't think there's much reason to own the other one. Like, I think there's so much overlap that you don't need both.
I think I probably agree with that. The thing I'm thinking about this is because I played and I've enjoyed playing both the solo and the cooperative mode, which is interesting how that turned out. The cooperative mode, you pretty much have a timer of resources, and we actually ran out of time, but then we're like, let's play rounds afterwards, just see how we do. And we were just having fun because we're just building the engine. You actually can trade cards a certain number of times. And, as you said, like if you're drawing certain cards, when you're playing, you're like, oh, I just got the card that's going to make your engine go off. And then when you trade that feels so good. Mm-hmm. And maybe I don't think we've played a mode like that in Terraforming Mars. I don't know if that's added in an expansion and I just somehow missed that.
Could be. There's 18 of them.
Yes, there's a lot. This definitely feels like we've seen other games when they do like a weirder version, like a spin-off version, but this does feel like it keeps so much of a lot of the core parts, like the deck building. Like it's definitely prettier. Like I think this was designed to be the one that's, I think, much more accessible early on. Like I don't think I'd suggest Terraforming Mars to anyone who's just like maybe has like 2 or 3 games in their collection.
Still has like a complicated depth to it, though. It's still a deep game.
It's definitely lowered the bar, though. And I think that's really the big thing. It's, I think, much more approachable to a lot of people because they remove a lot of that. Like, I don't have to think about how you're going to take territory from me or something, which Terraforming Mars has, which I love. I think there's a lot more fun to it. But I understand what they're going for this, and I felt that and had fun with it. I think I need to play a lot more of the original Terraforming Mars, especially now with all the expansions. I don't know what they're going to do with this. This definitely can fit more cards, and I'm sure that's more of a terrifying thought for you than it is a hope. But to see if it is enough. And I want to go back to those components. Like with this regular version, I think they have layered boards.
Dual layer
boards. It is just like the original Terraforming Mars. Very, it's annoying if someone just does that.
Yeah, I have so many issues with the components of this game. Like you said, this is bad. This is also bad.
Well, for anyone out there who's definitely really good at maybe counting cards, or not even good, just like card, not all these are cut equal.
Oh, right. Some of the cards are cut at different sizes. I forgot about that aspect of it.
It's a small thing, but if you shuffle this and you deal with a lot of cards, you'll notice.
But this board, you'll notice that these markers are not the same size as the spaces that they follow. These are your score trackers. Very important. You need to know where these are at all times. Like they barely fit, and if two people are on the same space, let alone three people, I mean, you can so easily forget. Was I on this one? Was I on this one? There's little ridges here for no reason. I don't know what that's for. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but there's just so many things that feel like they didn't think about the design of this once it was actually on the table. And then we also talk about things on these cards where there's a lot of redundancies where, like you see this symbol, which when it has a red background means your production increases in that area. If it doesn't, you just get that amount of money in cubes. It doesn't increase your production from each round, which like you can figure that out as you go, but I feel like there had to be a clearer way to do it. Or in a card like this where like you have the player board to track that, but you also have the card that tells you that. So sometimes I'll get confused, especially when we first started playing of, oh wait, is this separate from my board? Like you could really do this and then put this away. Like you don't need to look at it anymore. Just all these little things that added up to a frustrating experience for me, in addition to the issues I already had that, yeah, I wasn't thrilled with that.
Yeah,
that
and
was my rant.
I understand, and I think that's going to be part of the problems with this for a lot of people. And for me, I still had a lot of fun and maybe was able to overlook a lot of those things while playing, because I really loved being able to actually just build a huge engine and not have to worry about like I'm losing land on Mars in the original one. But it is far from perfect. Crits and misses for Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition.
Crits. The card-based gameplay of the original Terraforming Mars is intact here, with a stronger focus on building up your engine and having a satisfying tableau of cards that are helping you gain victory points at the end of the game.
Near the end of the game, you'll probably be looking at all the cards you played, realizing that you got 3 production here that in return triggers this action that also triggers this card, meaning you're going to have some very fun large engines going on.
In this game, players decide which phases are going to show up each round. This adds a unique element that means every round is going to feel different and requires you to somewhat read your opponents and see if you can play off of their decisions.
It is fun to watch as the cards are revealed if things worked in your favor or not, but rarely are you going to feel really backstabbed or have a lot of negative feelings if things didn't work out your way.
Compared to the original game, this one is cheaper, smaller, and a little more streamlined. It's more accessible. It will be easier to get to the table with new players.
There's a reason this was made a Target exclusive. It's definitely designed for newer players and those who haven't had the experience of 5 years worth of playing board games under their belt. Misses. There is a Kickstarter version out there with better components, but even when you look at this one, some of these are a little bit inexcusable. The fact that the cards alone aren't cut equally is a pretty bad sign.
From the boards to the cubes to the cards, there are a lot of little issues going on with the components here, and while none of them are game-breaking in and of themselves, all added up together, they can make for a frustrating experience.
We mentioned before how this is designed to be a friendlier version for newer players, as well as shorter and streamlined, but we don't feel like it really differentiates itself enough from the original base Terraforming Mars. It still takes up quite a bit of time, just like the original, and shares a lot of the problems plenty of people had with the original Terraforming Mars. It's so close that we're really not sure there's a reason for you to own both.
The luck of the draw card play is roughly the same, and while the time has been reduced, it's not exactly a short game at this point, nor is it exactly something for very new gamers, even though it is more accessible. It just has a lot of the same trappings of the original and could have done more to make itself stand out. In summary, I did not enjoy much of my time playing Ares Expedition, but like I said, I do still think the core card play gameplay is there from the original. So I didn't like have a bad time. I enjoyed parts of it. And I wonder if I hadn't played the original, if I would really love this game. But I couldn't help but compare the two experiences. And with that in my head, most of the time playing this, I just couldn't think of a real reason I would want to play this over the original. Like I said, theoretically, I wish this were like 45 minutes. Then I would be like, oh, you want a quicker game, let's get the experience in a shorter time. But in our experience, it was more like 90 minutes to 2 hours. So maybe you're sure you might shave off an hour from the original game, but to me, it's the trade-offs aren't worth it. I would rather just play the base and say, I don't need this. I think some people might love the phase, the selection thing, and that might really step the game up for you. But I just found all of it kind of muddled and unnecessary. It all just felt like they were trying too hard to, like, we want to make this a little bit different, but not too different. We want to still please the original fans too. Maybe that's the problem, is they tried to please both camps and ended up down the middle, and I didn't like either end of it.
I definitely need to play more of the original. It's been a while since we played it again.
We have played it a lot. It's just been a long
Yeah,
time.
no,
Yeah.
it's just always, closer time. But one of the things I loved about the original was the engine building. I liked the cards there. I did not mind the art, and obviously they upped their art game here compared to the
Yeah.
original one. That's
Yeah.
one of the small things. So for me, keeping that core component and removing while fun, the stress of worrying about the territory and things in the awards like that. So I was like, oh, I get to just do the engine. I remember one time when you're like, I feel like we should be done. But the thing is, for me, I was just like, I can keep going. I'm still playing cards, doing stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that was one of the things where it didn't, why for me, I was having more fun than you were. But I think everything you're saying is not like, I don't think that's true. I think they're completely valid. And that's why we were even talking after I played the cooperative mode. We had so much fun because we could help build each other's engine and stuff.
Hmm.
Even after we lost.
Not me. You
Yes,
said,
I played with someone
we,
else.
but it's not
Sorry,
me. Just
sorry.
to be clear.
Yes, sorry. And maybe that they should have gone was maybe, and that would have been more different, was like, how do we really make a cooperative, everyone works together to work on their engine mode?
Yeah.
I think could have been a really cool, fun thing, because it definitely, like, when you play, you're like, okay, I see what they did and they tried to do what they can, but it was really fun when you could have been like, oh, you're building the bacteria engine going on, so if I get that, I know to give it to you, instead of when you have your bad luck and you're like, oh, well, I guess I'll discard this for money.
Yeah, that could have been a cool thing if they really just went all in on that. I agree. Like you said, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it just goes back to the bad card draw thing again. But yeah, in all the times we played it, I always felt like 6 rounds before the end, I just felt like I don't need anything else. Like, I have my engine. I'm not drawing cards that are helping me. So it just felt like the game was dragging on, which I never felt in the original one. It's usually the opposite. It's, oh man, I want another turn so I can just get this going. And I know that can be frustrating too, but if I have to choose between that and the game going on forever.
Yeah, no, it is, but I will say, because I remember some other games I've mentioned that. I don't feel like Terraforming Mars does it. It does it in the same way, like, I'm excited just to play things. Like, so I don't think it does it negatively there. I don't know why it did better for me. And I will say, at this point, I'm thinking I will keep this copy only because you have the original Terraforming Mars. And I'm like, well, this way I have this one, and if you're not around, I can play it. But in the end, I do really think if you have the original, there's no reason to pick this up.
Yeah, especially with like there's all those expansions like we said. So if you really like it, there's just way more you can do with it already. But I don't know. Some people I think really like this version. Maybe you're one of
Mhm.
those people. Please leave a comment down below because I would love to hear your rebuttal why you think this one is just as good or better than the original game, or if you have different experiences with the Kickstarter version or anything like that.
You can let us know, of course, in those comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. But until then, I'm Will,
I'm Jonathan.
and this has been Roll for Crit. It's time for this video to come to a close. But before you leave, hit that like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. And if you can support us on Patreon, that would mean a lot too. If you still really like us, you can maybe buy some merch off our merch store. We've got a lot of cool designs with new stuff released on a regular basis. So don't forget to check it out.